Can anybody else see the points exactly where Manu might have exerted control, like really intensive control over the outcome of everything and how this was going to go?
Like he said that he could, like it was impossible to charm the zombie.
Right. He could have blocked them. And this is an interesting point because we talked about honoring the system you're using, but I'm not talking about the rules in the text. And there is an interesting and curious thing when you're playing that sometimes you're kind of game designing as you go. I mean, you hadn't established that charm rolls don't work on a zombie, right? So do they or don't they? And you kind of became a game designer right there. You see, not just a rules interpreter or anything like that. I mean, a game designer. This is how it's going to be. Charm rolls work on zombies. So, but that's not, that in some ways, that's an interesting question as to whether that's a form of control or not. Which I want to leave as a question. I'm not going to answer that. I don't know if that's a form of control or not. It can be, certainly. But let's go to the part next, which is whether they could, for lack of a better word, catch up with the zombie. We're at the point now where you, as the game master, are in what I call situation authority.
Okay.
Right? Outcome has occurred. They cast charm on the zombie, and actually that's a bit of outcome authority, deciding whether it works or not. Right?
Right.
And then, and in this case, without reference to a textual rule or in defiance of it, fine. That's what authority is, right? And then you say, okay, given that outcome and given their next statements, then you are in the position of situation authority. Where are we and what's happening? That's what situation authority is. Where are we and what's happening? And that's your job. So the question is, do you use this job to turn the story into something you want to happen? I mean, like to be a new outcome later? Or do you just take it to where it needs to be, given everything that we already know? And you turns to roles to help you, which is one thing that's really quite good about roles and other techniques of this kind, is that they force you to consult something and grapple with something for your authorities, as opposed to just controlling them. In many ways, that's kind of what any randomized method is for, is to just kind of keep your authorities honest, if you will. Right? And so, or at least you're able to know, you're always working with some input rather than just planning ahead and grinding along with what you want to happen, which ultimately is boring.
Right.
So there you are. I mean, it's not boring if your goal is to be a transitive entertainer, right? The storyteller to them. But if you're trying to play with people, then it's actually quite painful and boring to be too much in charge. So, therefore, you use a method to exert your situational authority, right? But,
sure.
I mean, that's what happened, but you didn't preset like whether they were actually going to be able to stop the zombie or how other people were going to be, engaged in it or whatever. We're still, you set up a situation which is itself still a question mark. Zombie round 2, right? So so that's what I'm kind of interested in here is you could have, I'm trying to think of a way that would demonstrate the intuitive continuity thing. Well, yes, they cast the charm spell on the zombie, and you could have told him what to do, and you could have decided, I guess, upon or had you have exactly the situation in mind now. You know what the climax needs to be, and you're going to and you say, okay, Now they're going to be at the warehouse when the deal goes down. Now they're going to come into the temple as the sacrifice is just underway. Now the ritual, is nearly complete. And you might even be making that decision on the basis of how much time has gone by. We've been in this convention scenario for 3 hours. We spent the first hour on character creation, right? We spent 2 hours, if you don't mind me looking at this judgmentally, fucking around. And I have now garnered enough raw meat and, wiggle room and wiggles of how things have gone that now I'm ready to say, and the ceremony concludes tonight. Right? And so it looks as though they've discovered it all. And they discovered it all just in time.
But you were always going to say that at that time, no matter what they did.
1 hour left in our convention scenario, right? Time for the combat. And so, but it seems to me as though you're still kind of in a this could go any which way sort of frame of mind at the table with these two sort of unstoppable teen girls. The way you describe, you guys should see the poster he describes it. They're just like, he's like, whoa, what? Half the time. So is that making sense?
It is.
Okay. So you're ready for this scene to go any which way. That's what we're
yeah, absolutely.
On. Right.
Yeah, I think I was. And I would have felt bad if my niece's character got eaten or something, but I think we would have worked it out.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Go on, yeah.
Since they had good rolls, I figured they'd get to the zombie before it was able to start eating somebody else. So I figured, okay, it's just outside the village, right? And so then they had a fight with the zombie, and my sister's friend got the final roll that defeated the zombie, right? And so then I asked her, okay, what happens to the zombie? How do you kill it? And she said she cut the head off, and then it flew into a bowl of stew that the villagers were preparing. So, and then they all ate it.
God, I love it when a plan comes together. Did everybody just see the narration authority?
It's
the narration authority, the details of a given outcome, which may or may not be highly consequential, and in this case, they kind of were. But narration authority is its own special thing, and it's kind of interesting. Remember how I say you can transfer it around, transfer any authority around the table? And that's what you did. You could have done the narration authority yourself, couldn't you? You chose not to. That's fine. Again, not relevant to intuitive continuity or not.
Right.
But whether you do or you don't. But it's an interesting point to identify, the terminology in action. I guess. Or maybe I just am so proud of my own terminology that I want to use it. I don't know. So apologies if I did that. But okay, so back to intuitive continuity. This is one thing that's kind of interesting, because by giving up that narrational authority, by giving that up, you kind of in many ways were really saying, I don't want to do intuitive continuity here. Right? A certain amount of power.
Interesting. Of course. Right. Interesting.
That's actually one of the aversive reactions that people have toward the pool. They're terrified of the formalization of the transfer of narration authority.
Yeah, one thing I also observed with long-time players of traditional games, that they really have trouble grasping that kind of authority.
Alexandra.
So lately I started to run Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition as an experiment, and even though I'm I'm a long time role player. I almost never run it, so I'm a new GM for D&D, and we've got a fight, and one of player characters fall down, and he was out of combat. And I thought it wouldn't be fun if he had to like just listen to whatever was going on, and the combat was going on for 4 hours, so it was the middle of it. So I decided that if he wants, he could take NPC that was prisoner of the goblins, and if he wants and he wanted, so he did stuff with him. Pretty funny. He shoved one of the goblins, flew away, and tried to hide in the cave. And later I asked my friends what they thought about this session, because some people were listening, some of them were reading my actual play. And they told me that it was risky. That
risky. It sounds brilliant.
Yes.
Of course. And, if the game gives you the difficult point that you can actually take somebody out of literal play, which is a design flaw, then why not you fix it? I mean, yeah.
So what was their thinking? Their thinking was that one, there were secrets in the scenario, because it was the module Lost Mines of Vandelver. It's starting
so does
scenario
that mean the prisoner knew something?
Yeah, there was some info about what the prisoner knew about the core situation in those whole situation about it.
Backstory, yes.
Yeah, so some backstory, but also that if they knew the stats of the character, and they could knew if he's got some magical stuff.
But if he's been playing them, then why shouldn't they know?
Yeah, but if their character don't know it, so.
You mean the character who fell down and now he's recovered?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So by giving away the control over the NPC, I was giving away the secrets of some part of the scenario. And the other point was that it was possible that the player would do some unexpected things. So it would be a safer option to just make the NPC incapacitated. So I wouldn't have to care about the NPC. So
God forbid your players do anything unexpected.
And it was so cool, because I wouldn't even think of shoving one of those goblins. He decided that this NPC would hide somewhere. And then during the negotiation between goblins and PC characters, the PCs tried to buy off this NPC. And it led me to think, oh no, the goblins had this prisoner, but they don't know where he is. So they aren't near the cave, but they are scattered all around the caves looking for the prisoner. So it led into some funny consequences of the whole situation.
Because incomplete knowledge can often be a lot of fun for everybody. So this is really quite interesting, because again, what we're ultimately talking about is control of outcomes, control of more than outcomes, control of plot, right? If we're going to have plot as something that happens during play, truly to let go of your command over it, your control over it, is terrifying until you do it. That you didn't need to have that control. That it's not chaos, right? The player isn't going to ruin everything, right?